What is going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler, and as you can see, we're taking out the bashers for this episode of Car Week. I personally own an Arrma Kraton 6S, which is an 8th scale buggy, and right now we're taking a look at my buddy Tyson's truck, which is an Arrma Outcast, which is a 5th scale 8S powered truck. Super big, super powerful, and it's a stunt truck, super fun. Here is my Kraton taking its first jumps of the day. This is one of the newer vehicles that I have in my fleet. I picked this up from Sky RC in St. George. It's the local hobby shop down here. Walked in there, decided I wanted to leave there with the basher, and I picked up the Kraton because it's a little bit lower and wider, a lot of fun, and it's got 6S power, so I already had a bunch of 3S batteries laying around. It worked out well for what I had. We went out here to Sand Hollow and went out into the sand dunes thanks to Tyson being able to get us some access out here. You can see me trying to make a few gaps here, jumping off a cliff edge out over a rock and down a 20 to 30 foot drop and then into a giant sand hill here. And here is the competition hill. Most people race their four-wheelers up the backside of this, and I decided to turn it into a jump and use the big long dune as my landing. Here is Tyson in his Outcast getting a bad bump on the takeoff and hitting his rear tires pretty hard. As he lets off the throttle, it throws his truck into a wicked front flip and unfortunately over rotates and starts to turn sideways, and he absolutely smashes his front tire into the ground there. Now this clip ends a little bit short here, and his truck continues cartwheeling for at least 100 to 200 yards all the way down to the bottom of this dune. This is a monster sand dune. This is where they come out and drag race the full-size stuff, and his truck rolled all the way down. We ourselves decided to try and drag race up the backside as well. Tyson got the jump a little bit. I didn't get on the throttle in time, but not the best real drag race here, but it was definitely fun chasing him up the hill. I think my truck did pretty good keeping up with an 8S truck, although mine is lighter. So now we're finally got out to the sand dunes. We got the big jumps out here, and we are going full send. With these takeoffs, we're getting going as fast as we possibly can with the terrain that we're given. The ruts out there from the real side-by-sides and trucks and whatnot really disturb my truck. I lose a lot of traction and it bounces a lot. The 5th scale truck eats those up a little bit better, but it still struggles at times. Here you can see getting just an awesome takeoff, and it just sending it to the moon, up above the skyline, and then the dune is actually falling downhill for where the landing is going. So the further out you go, the lower your landing gets. So these trucks really start to fall out of the sky, and they take absolute just hits on these landings. It's amazing what these Arrmas can handle. It's really cool. So here's my Kraton, full speed, full throttle off of the takeoff, just laying into the throttle in the air, and this truck will flip over backwards. At this speed, it's not very snappy. It won't quickly rotate, but with these size of jumps, you can see I let off the throttle there and it pitched it forward, grabbed a fistful of throttle again, and it brought it right back around. With this size of a jump, you have so much time in the air, it's really not hard to flip this thing. I get up there and I just stand on the throttle all the way through the flight, and it will absolutely rotate over backwards. Here we are. You can get a better look at just how fast we're coming into these, and I'm full throttle right here, wide open, coming into the kicker and just sailing off the backside. That is definitely one of the bigger jumps that I did of the day. Here comes Tyson on the same jump, got his Outcast power wheeling into the takeoff, full throttle up into the air, and you can just see how high this thing pops off that kicker, way up into the sky. Unfortunately, a lot of this was recorded in a portrait mode on my phone, throwing up some clips on Instagram for the TikTok style stuff in Reels. Be sure to follow me, West Desert Wheeler, on Instagram. And then Tyson coming down and smashing his truck into the ground right on the backside of that wing and into his rear A-arms. His truck did have a few minor things that happened to it. The upper, I don't even know what to call it. There's a little turnbuckle up there that kept slipping on him, and all he had to do was turn that back out, and it would get his camber set correctly in the rear again. I think we had to do that 2 or 3 times, but it's a really big truck, and these are really big jumps. Here it comes back, limping back to where we are, but it drove under its own power and got itself back up the hill. Big shout out to Arrma for that one. So here's my truck, slow motion. Oh, that's Tyson's truck, slow motion. He probably could have pulled a backflip if he would have tried. And I mean, you're talking 10 to 15 feet off the top of the ramp there, and then just sailing down the sand dunes. So right here we're going to get a really cool perspective of the big jump and full speed. This is Tyson's truck, 5th scale truck, to give you an idea of just how big this is. And then he's going to take off across here, and he found a fun little line. Rip across the sand dunes. There's a little bump as he's going to approach it right here, get a little bit of a wheelie, and then he's going to turn and full throttle, shoot across this sand dune, and look at the amount of ground that thing covers. And it's just a little 2-second blip of the throttle to line up for that. And he's going to come rocketing back towards us up the landing and then fly off the top across the jump down into where he took off to start with. So super cool line there, and really great perspective of that sideways jump, just how far these things are flying. Here we have the biggest jump of the day. So Tyson's absolutely hucking it in that outcast. Here comes my Kraton. This is about a 12-foot kicker into a 150-foot tall sand dune, and your trucks just fly down the bottom of this thing. Right there, I hit bad on the landing, started cartwheeling, and my battery actually fell out of the truck before coming to a stop, but the truck was just fine. I just strapped the battery back in. That's a 5th scale little dot just falling out of the sky right there. Absolutely hilarious how tiny it makes that truck look. These sand dunes are huge out here. So right here, sailing off of it in the Kraton, standing on it on the throttle, and actually getting a backflip on that jump, getting a little bit of redemption for the first crash that I took. Now I'm coming back up that landing, just standing on full throttle and flying off the kicker, probably 30 to 40 foot drop, slamming into the sand down in the bottom and driving out of it like it didn't happen. Get a little up close look at the Kraton there. And then these are going to be my last couple jumps. Going to come up a way bigger approach. This sand is so vertical that it won't hold like the little wind marks or anything like that. It's as steep as sand can like physically hold itself. And I'm using it for a jump. This truck just eats it up. Here we go. Big old flip. You can see that truck out there to give you some perspective of how far we're flying. Well, I greatly appreciate you guys watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the affiliate links down below. Check out Sky RC Hobby Shop in St. George, Utah if you're in the area. Thanks to Tyson for coming out and bashing around with me. It was a ton of fun. Had a great time out there with the Arrma trucks. We will see you guys in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.